The Eyes Restrict archetype, known in the Japanese as Eyes Sacrifice, are a purely dark attributed spellcaster type series of monsters that all share the same stats of 0 attack, 0 defense, and a mere level of 1. However, despite possessing the literal weakest stats possible in the game, don't be fooled into thinking the monsters are weak. On the contrary, a monster's power lies not just in its fighting capabilities. A monster's true power is revealed in its effect. Knowing this, the boss monster of this archetype is Thousand Eyes Restrict, who was once considered one of the most powerful Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the game, not only in the anime as it was wielded by the creator himself as his trump card, but also in the real world, as Thousand Eyes Restrict had spent a number of years being on the forbidden list due to its overwhelming potential, especially when paired with some other troublesome cards, like Metamorphosis, that would enhance the skills of Thousand Eyes Restrict by allowing it to be instantly summoned to the field. However, as we know, skills that are too strong in Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't stay that way for long, as both Thousand Eyes Restrict and Metamorphosis were banned as a result. This is a shame, as unlike in the real world, when you learn a new skill, that only makes you more powerful, and nobody's going to get you banned for combining skills to make yourself more powerful in the real world. But where can you learn new skills? Well, it's easy, with today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is made up of thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people who want to improve themselves or begin their journey by learning a new skill. For myself, for example, you might have noticed I've started to dabble a little bit in real-world skits. So, to help me improve, I've been taking a video editing class by Oliver Astrologo. I'm given helpful step-by-step instructions on the most effective ways to shoot, edit, and turn my footage into a story, all in under 60 minutes. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner, intermediate, or even a master at your craft, Skillshare is the perfect place to learn new skills. I mean, I wouldn't mind learning how to draw my own anime characters, if I'm honest. That would be pretty cool. Oh wow, there's actually a class for that as well. New premium classes are added all the time, and for less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, it's an affordable way to begin your journey. Best of all, for a limited time, use the link in my description to get a free trial of Skillshare's premium membership. Thank you, Skillshare. Now back to the video. The first of the Eyes Restrict series to be released was Relinquished, which came out in April 2000's OCG pack, Magic Ruler. Further support would arrive 8 months later in the OCG pack, Thousand Eyes Bible. After this, it would then take a whopping 17 years before more support was added, which was in 2017's Duelist pack, Legend Duelist 2, with the most recent support arriving in 2020's Duel Overload. As we mentioned earlier, in the anime, Maximilian Pegasus used these cards in his deck alongside the Toon monsters. These two archetypes couldn't be more different in terms of their aesthetics. They in fact reflect the innocence and darkness of Pegasus's character. But you see, Pegasus was a man who grew up loving Saturday morning cartoons. In his adolescence, he wished to create games, art, and other mediums of fun for others in the same way cartoons helped him as a child. Unfortunately though, life outside of those cartoons was sadly not as kind. At the age of 17, he suffered the tragic loss of his wife. In his desperation, he turned to dark magic to find a way to bring her back. It is here that fate would entwine him with the Millennium Eye, one of 7 mystical objects that were created through the sacrifice of 99 human souls. This aspect of sacrifice and darkness embodies one half of his deck. In fact, sacrifice is not only the name of the archetype in the original Japanese, but also a core part of their abilities too, as in order to summon or use the effect of these monsters, some form of sacrifice needs to be made, whether it be from the owner or the opponent. So if this half of the deck reflects Pegasus's descent into darkness and use of shadow magic, then the other half, his Toon monsters, reflect Pegasus's psyche clinging onto that innocence from his youth, where the world was full of brightness and colour, and where his wife and he were still together. Perhaps we can delve more into the Toon cards another day, but for now, since we know a little bit more about this archetype, how about we take a look at each of the individual cards, starting with Thousand Eyes Idol, known in the Japanese as Thousand Eyes Pagan God. Its card description reads, a wicked entity that controls the hearts of men. Its thousand eyes are able to see and expand the negative influences in an individual's soul. Worth mentioning, at least once, but this card and all other self-proclaimed thousand eyes, I'm making finger quotes here, these cards, they don't have 1,000 eyes. It's false advertising if you ask me. A more accurate name for this monster would be 18 eyes Mr. Potato Head looking dude, but hey, who am I to judge? I'm just saying. He doesn't have 1,000 eyes, that's all. Out of all of the eyes restrict cards in the archetype, this monster specifically is the literal weakest card in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! By having no attack or defense values, a mere level of 1, and having absolutely no effect whatsoever. Literally, its only saving grace is that it combines with another monster to give its in-law magic to control the hearts of others to that monster to create something, well, truly terrifying. The monster that this card is able to merge with is Relinquished, known in the Japanese as Sacrifice. Its effect is you can ritual summon this card with Black Illusion Ritual. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls, equip that target to this card. Maximum of 1. This card's attack and defense become equal to that equipped monster's. If this card would be destroyed by battle, destroy that equipped monster instead. While equipped with that monster, any battle damage you take from battles involving this card inflicts equal effect damage to your opponent. Appearing as the cover cards for booster packs, Magic Ruler and Spell Ruler. Quick Yu-Gi-Oh! History lesson. The reason there are 2 packs, Spell Ruler and Magic Ruler, is because the Spell Ruler pack actually replaced Magic Ruler, because originally spell cards were called magic cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! However, another little card game called Magic the Gathering had the word magic in it, and potential legal issues could arise, so they thought, let's just bite the bullet, change magic to spell. No confusion there. Relinquished was the first ever ritual effect monster to be released in the Japanese, and by extension, its fused form, Thousand Eyes Restrict, was the first fusion monster to have an effect too. As such, since it was the first, Relinquished was given quite the effect to make it stand out. In fact, its effect was so intricate and required so many things to be explained that it was barely able to fit inside the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card text. I mean, look at that mess. I see why you need to have 1,000 eyes to be a part of this archetype now. Luckily, however, despite this, it did get edited eventually to be a bit more simple and easier to understand, and it was a lesson in life. Konami would never make this mistake again of putting convoluted texts that are absolutely, oh no, yeah, they did, never mind. As a ritual monster, in order for this card to be summoned, a ritual spell was required, called Black Illusion Ritual, known simply in the Japanese as Illusion Ritual. But, fun fact, this card, that was the literal only possible way of getting this monster out, didn't actually come with the card. Instead, its closest release was as a promo card in The Valuable Book 2, alongside Dark Eyes Illusionist. If you wanted to get everything together, then Structure Deck Pegasus was probably your best bet, as that included all of the initial Eyes Restrict cards. Relinquish would influence 2 spin-offs based on its design. These were Relinkuribo, known in the Japanese as Sakuribo. It's a Kuribo that has parts of its body and name taking after the monster. The other card was Sword of Dark Rite, known in the Japanese as Sacrifice Sword, which had its handle based off of the design of Relinquished. This was most likely done due to its Japanese name. Since its name featured the word sacrifice in it, then you might as well make the design look like the card Sacrifice too. Illusionist Faceless Magician, known in the Japanese as Magical Illusionist, no face. The face up, Eyes Restrict Fusion Monster or Relinquished you control is destroyed by battle or card effect. You can special summon this card from your graveyard if it was there when the monster was destroyed, or hand, even if not. You can special summon this card from the graveyard if it was there when the monster was destroyed, or hand, even if not. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one Eyes Restrict Fusion Monster or Relinquished in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use each effect of Illusionist Faceless Magician once per turn. One of the more modern support cards for the archetype. If you feel as if this card looks familiar, don't worry. That's because it's based on Pegasus's Illusionist Faceless Mage, called Illusionist No Face in the Japanese. Back then it was only a normal monster, and its card lore read manipulates enemy attacks with the power of illusion. Unfortunately, its lore didn't translate at all into its retrained counterpart, as it does not affect enemy monsters' attacks in its effect. Millennium Eyes Illusionist. Quick effect. You can discard this card, then target one effect monster your opponent controls, equip that target to an Eyes Restrict fusion monster or relinquished you control, as if it were equipped by that monster's effect. If an Eyes Restrict fusion monster or a relinquished is special summoned, add this card from your graveyard to your hand. This is not optional. You can only use each effect of Millennium Eyes Illusionist once per turn. If this card too seems familiar, that's because it too is a retrained version of another of Pegasus's OG cards. This time, it's Dark Eyes Illusionist, which was a flip effect monster with the effect to target one monster on the field. It cannot attack while this card is face up on the field. In this monster's case, it did absorb a bit of its past self's effect by being able to target a monster like it did, but this time it equips it onto one of the boss monsters instead. Essentially though, leading to the monster being paralyzed, like it did in its old school form. Now then, speaking of boss monsters, we have Thousand Eyes Restrict, known in the Japanese as Thousand Eyes Sacrifice, requires Relinquished and Thousand Eyes Idle. Other monsters on the field cannot change their battle positions or attack. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls, equip that target to this card, maximum of 1. This card's attack and defense become equal to that equipped monster's. If this card would be destroyed by battle, destroy that equipped monster instead. Now, if you thought that was a strong effect back in the day, keep in mind its anime effect actually allowed you to equip a new monster every single turn, with each new monster being equipped having their attack and defense merged together. As well, if an absorbed monster is destroyed, the owner of that monster loses the life points instead. And to top it all off, while it had a card absorbed, it was incapable of being destroyed by any means. Now that is pretty OP. Another 1000 Eyes Proclaimer. To be fair, it does have closer to 1000 eyes than 1000 Eyes Idle did. However, even considering more eyes hiding in the dark spots and some more probably on its back, I'm sorry to say, that is false advertising once again. The best I can give you, 1000 Eyes Restrict, is 100 Eyes Restrict. Take it or leave it. This monster appeared in the artworks of Extra Net and Summon Gate. This is particularly cool as the two cards tell a funny little short story of Yugioh Guardian and Relinquish being thrown into the banned list, mirroring their real life treatment. And then later, with the release of Summon Gate, 1000 Eyes Restrict is being shown finally being released, and waves a sad goodbye to the cards not yet freed. It's beautiful. So, with its freedom and being made unlimited, it begs the question, why was this monster banned for so long? Well, the reason for its ban wasn't necessarily just due to its effect, which, like Relinquished in its first iteration, was a pretty huge chunk of text. And I mean, back then it was required to explain exactly what the monster does, but fun fact, even with all that text, they forgot to mention that if 1000 Eyes Restrict would be destroyed in battle, the equipped monster is destroyed instead. They forgot to put that on. That's a pretty crucial thing to leave off its effect, don't you think? Anyway, the power to snatch an opponent's monster and restrict all others from moving, it's all very powerful old school stuff. However, what really set this card into the next gear was a little card called Metamorphosis. You see, Metamorphosis' effect was by tributing one monster, you could special summon a fusion from your extra deck with the same level. So, since 1000 Eyes Restrict was but a mere level 1 monster, all you had to do was get a level 1 on the field, play this card, and bam, instant OP monster. That's not the only ramification though. Since all you needed was this one spell card, then Polymerization, Relinquished, and 1000 Eyes Idle, all the things required to make the monster, well, might as well chuck them all out, you don't need them anymore. Naturally, since these two cards could fit easily into any deck and not really be a hindrance, 1000 Eyes Restrict and Metamorphosis were banned, with Metamorphosis still being banned to this day. Fast forward to modern times, there is a less powerful version of this tactic by using a card called Instant Fusion. This time, all you have to do is pay 1000 life points for 1000 Eyes Restrict. Hey, look at that, 1000, 1000. And with these two cards, bam, instant fusion on the field. Albeit it can't attack and is destroyed at the end of the turn, you can still snatch up a problematic monster on your opponent's side of the field, and when this monster goes to the grave, it takes it down with it. But even despite this play, Relinquish today is not as strong as it used to be. What with protection and quick effects being required for boss monsters to be strong nowadays. However, they did try to retrain the monster with an upgraded form. And this was with Millennium Eyes Restrict. known in the Japanese as Millennium Eyes Sacrifice, requires Relinquished and 1 effect monster. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard, equip that target to this card you control. This card gains attack and defense equal to that equipped monster's. Monsters with that equipped monster's name cannot attack. Also, their effects on the field and their activated effects are negated. If you look at its name of Millennium Eyes, it's a reference to 2 things. One is its predecessor, 1000 Eyes, as Millennium refers to 1000 years. The other is to the archetype's owner, who wielded the Millennium Eye. After Millennium Eyes came out, there was one more extra deck monster they released. More or less a upside down Relinquished, if you will. It was called Relinquished Anima, or Sacrifice Anima in the Japanese. It requires 1 level 1 monster, except a token. You can target 1 face-up monster this card points to, equip that face-up monster to this card, maximum of 1. Can only use this effect of Relinquished Anima once per turn. This card gains attack equal to that equipped monster's. Finally, the archetype has 1 unique spell to call its own, and that was Relinquished Fusion, known in the Japanese as Sacrifice Fusion. Fusion summon 1 Eyes Restrict Fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials from your hand, field, and or graveyard. During your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, equip that target to an Eyes Restrict Fusion monster, or relinquish you control as if it were equipped by that monster's effect. Can only use each effect of Relinquish Fusion once per turn. And with that, guys, that's another archetype done! Do you still run 1000 Eyes Restrict? And if you do, how's it working out for you in today's modern game? Before we go, it's that time again where we give a huge shout out to the people that help support this channel over on Patreon and YouTube. Thank you firstly to my platinum backer, Nemo-chan. Thank you for that little bit extra every month. You are honestly helping the channel so much, as well as my YouTube and gold backers, Michael Wachlarski, Stefan Pohl, Silver Defender, Yugioh Everything, Goosey Q, Yukaido Kenya, Riaz Gremory, Elizabeth Denise Leggin, Danny Bound. Guys and girls, thank you very much for supporting the channel and help making this content possible. As well to my silver backers, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all. Right, bye everyone.